All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian Farmer, Traffic and Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, August 29th. Well, around and around we go. We've got couple good earnings reports that just hit the tape, and Dell is up, MDB is up, a couple other ones. I think Marvell is up. The big question I think will be is can they hold the gains, especially anything in AI. I think right now, I think it's very difficult to kind of hold gains in some of these stocks. So we'll see. What's kind of interesting, I think, well, there's a few things that are interesting. Before we get into them, risk disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that we are going through is for information purposes only. So what do I mean interesting? I use that word a lot. There have been some very good earnings reports. We have a lot of strong earnings. I've got a watch list with well over 100 names from this last quarter of names that have put in good earnings. But there's also some really bad reports out there too, like Dollar General. Was the latest for the day, and of course, we could talk a little bit about Nvidia, but it's not one of my favorite situations to see one name really have such an impact on the overall market. And I hope that we do get out of this in terms of, you can kind of look at the pattern for the day a bit, and even it's pulling the S&P around, which, it's about a 6.6%, and it's not the exact same, uh, you know, sensitivity, more so for the Qs, but which underperformed today. But it just seems to be whenever Nvidia starts to sell off a little bit, it's pulling down the overall market. And there's still, you have to think about too. I forget what the weight is in the S&P. I think it's around like 6% or something like that. But there's just so many other companies that are also being affected by Nvidia, and so it's kind of a difficult situation. Also looking at today's price action, and you can see for the Qs, sometimes it helps when I look at the 1 hour chart like this, because you could definitely some patterns emerge, right? Basically after we had this nice up move from the lows, all right, all in here, and kind of like almost like a double bottom, higher low here, and then we made our way up. But since we made this point, it's lower high city, lower high here, lower high here, lower high here. And also notice this week just battling with this bottom of the value area for the week. So that acted as really good resistance. And I, normally I do like a victory lap or something when I say, oh, I found this, but I didn't notice that I was more focused on other areas of the market today, because other things were just doing better than the big cap tech. But we look at what we did here. We failed here pretty miserably, and we went lower, and that's a pretty major rejection. SPY, and you can see, by the way, like we're back to this bottom. So this is the one box for this week. This larger box is the value area for the and I'm just starting here because this is where this is the weakest right now of the indices, believe it or not. And I know that's tough for a lot of people to kind of get their arms around, but it's just not been performing very well. Higher beta too, and I really think AI, I think, is right now is kind of in a bad spot. But we are holding on. We're basically just barely holding on to that bottom of value area. We only have one more day of August, and then we're going to be relying on this, this value area here that's still taking shape because we've got one more day. SPY, on the other hand, so I'm going to go from worst to maybe best, but you could see in this S&P futures level. I'll bring this up. We just can't get through this this 5660 level. And I tweeted this out earlier because it looked like at the time we had a full green bar, and I was like, huh, I kind of just said this, well, this is going to be interesting. We have a bullish at the time, which was right around like, I think like 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. We had a full green bar, and we're testing the top of the value area resistance. And I'm like, maybe we can do it. Maybe we could break through. And I just kind of stopped and watch a bit, and then you could see we have another major rejection there. at the same level. This market, there's a lot of resistance there up at this 5660 spot 50 level, and that's several times now that we've come across that and have not been able to break through it. Now, the 1 hour chart. So here's your positive, is that we did hold that bottom of the value area for the week. So again, there you can see your resistance. So again, what we're doing with this with the value areas here is you could see, like, you know, and if you're using the value areas, we ran a special a couple times here, but we ran, you can see all the different indicators that I use, which is just basically simple moving averages, 250, 20, and 5. And all of those give me a particular sense for, you know, by the way, any indicator that you have on your screen, you should be able to justify why it helps you. But I've got one version of the MarketWebs that are for the current time frame, and then I have the next higher. So you could see that that's the gray box here, which is the value area for the month. That's the next higher, right? Next higher time frame, right? And 1 hour, and that's when I jump to the daily. But on the 1 hour chart, so we are holding the value area for the week. You know, we broke that yesterday with selling pressure. We reclaimed it straight up until we hit that resistance. It seems so obvious after the fact, doesn't it? But you know, at the time, you know, it just seems like an easy picture. Oh yeah, of course we're going to get rejected there. But at the time, I was just kind of watching. I'm like, maybe we can kind of push through this finally. You know, I am optimistic when I you know, look at the overall market and so forth. You kind of have to be, right. You have to be on the side of being optimistic, but you also want to be realistic too. But hence, I would have loved to say that I shorted this, but I didn't. Trade, you know, so once I started this video with talking about, you know, some good things, and no, this was a great earnings report, and we capitalized on this. I mean, that's a heck of a move for a firm. So it's not to say that that everything is negative. It's just you've got a very large company that is just too tied into, in my opinion, and it's a detriment. I think right now is that Nvidia is just tied into too many companies, right? It's tied to you know, and you know, the expectations were just too high, right? And you know, I thought this was very interesting. I was listening to the CNBC argument earlier that they were having on their halftime show. They were saying, well, it's the analyst's fault for putting the expectations too high. But you have to remember, they're the ones who've been fueling the rally for a lot of this, upgrading the stock and setting price targets and so forth. So, you know, they've also been carrying the stock higher as, you know, all of those brokers put their price targets. So if you're going to blame them on the way down, you got to blame them a little bit on the way up too, because you know, they've been fueling the rally. So that's where we are. You know, that's a rejection. And I think the best thing that could happen here is that people just forget about the stock for a little while and move on to some other stories in the market. So I think at this point, you know, I think there's a lot more people, and I'm still long this stock. This is, of course, Berkshire Hathaway. You got to put the .B in here, but you know, this is extended at this point. So like anything, right, you got to take some profits off the table. But this just shows you, to me, and this is something I've been talking about over for the last week, that the market just wants lower volatility areas of the market. And you know, I've been trying to tweet people, like I even tweeted people, because they're kind of catching, like CNBC is finally like catching on to it. They're like, yeah, you know, it's the insurance companies, you know, which it is. And this is what I've been talking about now for well over, you know, a week or two. It's the financials, it's the industrials, right? Well, what's the one ETF that has all of these companies in them, or a lot of them in it? It's the it's the SPLV low volatility ETF, right? That's what this market likes right now. And you could come up with a reason, because I know a lot of people like reasons for why this is going on. It could be that we have an election, you know, and it could be just because we're also, you know, a big election, which is, you know, depending, I guess, what poll you look at, but it's pretty close, I would say, for the election, for what the polls say. But it's also because we're also approaching a very weak seasonal time of the year. And if you didn't, I'm going to keep this video short today. because I did a longer video yesterday, but please go back and listen to yesterday's video. And that's where I just talked about how you've really got to put things in perspective and say, hey, we've got, one more day and we're in September. September's a hard month. Like, August, September, like those are the best, in my opinion, like if you're a market bull, those are the best times to be taking off. Right, on average, right? We always talk about in the market probabilities, right? And because nothing is for certain, but we know that history does rhyme, and we know that you could use some of these things as an advantage to basically, to skew some of the probabilities in your favor. And knowing that August and September are difficult months, non-election year, and I think a little bit of an election, in an election year, it's a little bit better, but there's still more difficult months. So I think what's going on here is, you've got a lot of people just hiding out in some of these places. And you have to be careful about that too, in my opinion, because a lot of those areas are getting stretched to the upside. But yeah, disappointing to see this reversal in the semis. At this point, I just want the semis to kind of hold in, right? I think that we know that we've been seeing relative weakness in this group, but I don't want them to break down, because I think that it'll take the overall market down with it. They're just too concentrated, and so maybe encouraging earnings from Marvell after hours. They're up a bit, and so I think what you want to see, look at that hit of VPOC right there. I think what you want to see is for some of these companies to hold their gains. If Dell starts giving it back and comes back and is like flat by tomorrow morning, that there's just, the space is still too overcrowded. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.